BI to request information on gang information from GSAC. It could have, I just don't recall.
So, but the answer is that there are none of those reports or those type reports that
No, we
you
tapping
have
in live, man. Young
reviewed
Thug
for
trial.
this case,
You know
correct?
what I'm
No, sir, I don't believe so.
How about SARs? You know
Pay
what
attention
SAR is,
to
right?
I do.
what's really going
Suspicious
on.
activity report.
I do.
How about any of those?
I have not reviewed any of those, no.
Or prepared any of those with regard to the allegations in this case?
I have not.
Okay. All right. One moment, please.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Judge. That's all I have.
I thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Short, go ahead.
And Mr. Harvey, I want to make sure I return this to you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so you gave me the old form. Thanks, good job. I'll let you ask about the new form.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My name is Max Shard. I represent Shannon Stillwell. Just have a couple questions for you. First, just going back to the city of or the Atlanta Police Department SOPs, do they incorporate what are the Atlanta SOPs for the identification of individuals in classification as gang members or associates?
You know what I'm saying? So y'all.
I don't understand the question.
Okay.
The system and the way they use words.
Does the Atlanta Police Department have standard operating procedures for the identification of individuals as gang members or gang associates?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are those standard operating procedures?
As I mentioned before, we use the 6 criteria, those 6 factors to evaluate whether someone's a member or an associate of a criminal street gang.
Okay, so so my understanding, what you're telling us is the Atlanta Police Department has adopted that same test that you testified to.
I wouldn't characterize it as a test. It's a standard, I guess. Maybe that's just semantics, but yes.
All right. Now, is there
Crooked stuff going on.
individual within APD who is ultimately responsible for these classifications, or can any officer make a classification? How does that work?
So that SOP applies to whomever in the police department is investigating or responding to a gang-related crime. So it's equally applicable to any officer or investigator.
Okay, I understand that the SOPs apply to all officers and investigators. What I'm asking you is the Atlanta Police Department, according to the SOPs, do they allow any officer to make identifications and classifications of individuals, or do you have to be at a certain rank? Do you have to be in a certain division?
I'm not sure I understand.
That ain't even hard to answer.
That's the standing objection.
I'm trying to figure out what kind of
Have
life.
you had circumstances as you're a gang investigator, is that correct?
I am.
Okay, have you had circumstances as a gang investigator where you have disagreed with the assessments already made by others within APD about whether someone is a gang member or associate?
Objection as to relevance.
Yes, standing objection.
Sir, regarding you spoke to us on direct about the required nexus and how furtherance of a gang came from the case law, correct?
Y'all just stay tuned, man.
I did.
Sit back,
Okay.
watch, you know what I'm saying?
And,
See what it is.
you know, I don't want to quibble over terms. I think you ultimately said there's a required nexus for something to be criminal gang activity, correct?
Yes, we are expected to, or the court has asked for some nexus or connection between the crime and the gang's activities.
Okay. And when I believe on direct, you discussed, well, you said it comes down to money, power, and respect is kind of how you put it, I believe. Is that correct?
Wow.
Yes, we often find that those are the three key motivating factors in our criminal gang activity
Let's
investigations.
check out some of the comments too.
To your knowledge,
Go to the live comments.
in the standard operating
And we
procedures,
gonna shorten it
we
up.
just discussed
You can see the
a
live
standard
comments.
for identification of individuals. Is there a standard for identification of whether an alleged crime is gang
All right.
motivated or gang related, or there's a nexus to a gang? Is there a
Got a
standard?
few people saying free thugger.
There isn't, and specifically,
You know what I mean?
the courts have said that they have not required a test or standard or set of criteria to determine nexus.
Okay, I'm not asking what the courts have said. I'm asking in the Atlanta Police Department, is there a standard?
We rely on the rulings of the court,
Hit the
and
like button. You know what I'm saying?
that's
Well,
where we would make that, draw that,
Don't get it in, man.
the investigative tools to make that assessment.
So there is no written standard in APD?
I'm not sure I really understand what you're asking.
Very simple. In the standard operating procedures of APD, to your knowledge, is there a written standard for determining if a crime has a gang nexus?
I'd be glad to review the policy again, if you can show me what you're referring to. One of the things we
He's
talk
one
about
of the leaders,
is
but he don't even
um,
know the policy.
a
See,
crime
this
being
is-
classified as either
this is
gang
what I've
related
been
or gang
talking about,
motivated.
man.
I'm really not sure what you're pointing to in the policy.
I'm not pointing to anything. I'm asking you a question as an expert, or someone is proffered as an expert and a gang investigator. In the APD SOPs, is there a standard for determining whether a alleged crime is gang motivated or gang related?
I'd be glad to review the policy for you and let you know.
Oh
I'm
my
not
God.
really understanding specifically what you're asking.
I'm asking yes or no, or I don't know. And I guess it sounds like your answer is I don't know.
Yeah, based on your question, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Sir, okay, I'm going to ask again. If you're truly uncertain of what I'm asking, APD has standard operating procedures, correct?
We do.
Okay. And within the APD standard operating procedures, is there a standard laid out for the determination of whether a crime is gang related or gang motivated?
Simple question.
Not that I understand based on your question.
You don't know.
Okay. How about whether
You're leading
do you know the answer to my
gang
question?
investigator.
Objection, Your Honor.
Look at the comment.
I think that the question has been asked and the witness has given the best answer that he has.
I would
at the
disagree
moment.
with that assessment.
I would concur, Mr. Sharp. Let's just move on.
Okay. When a crime occurs, who ultimately makes the determination about the nexus? Is it a gang investigator? Is it the responding officer? Is it a specific person?
It depends on the case.
When would you become involved
Yeah.
in making, or when would you as a gang investigator become involved in making that determination?
if I was assigned to work on a particular case.
Okay.
Got him. Watch this. It's called a rope-a-dope.
And
Trick that lawyers use.
when you are assigned to work on a particular case and have to make that determination, what is the standard that you rely on?
As stated, based on my training and my knowledge, the courts haven't supplied us with a standard or a test to evaluate nexus in a case. So what we look at is the totality of the evidence within each particular case to lead us toward a conclusion of our own, at which time we would then apply for warrants or indictment or whatever is appropriate, which would be the first level of judicial review. And then eventually our cases would go before a judge or a jury where they would be assessed.
Okay. As an expert in making this determination, or a purported expert, and I mean no disrespect by that, it's just you haven't been qualified or not qualified yet, okay?
None taken.
Okay, so when a case comes across your desk and you make a determination, is there any sort of peer review within APD of other officers, other investigators within your the gang unit, or is there any sort of peer review at all? It's formalized peer review.
There is not a formalized peer review process, although we certainly do discuss cases and share experience and share knowledge to make the best decisions we can.
Okay.
Wow.
Are outside agencies or individuals consulted when making these determinations about a nexus?
At times, certainly.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So in some of our investigations, a subject of that investigation may have previously served time in the Department of Corrections. So we may reach out to them for information about that person's affiliations, rivalries, associations, things of that nature. Sometimes we're investigating crimes that were committed by someone who doesn't reside in the city of Atlanta, but has committed something that we may discover has some sort of potential gang relation, and we may reach out to another agency for any information or intelligence they may have as well.
In this case in particular, are you familiar with the indictment?
I am.
Okay. Are you familiar that with the fact that there's overt acts that have been alleged in the indictment?
I am.
Okay. Have you been consulted in this case as an expert by the state?
Objection as to the compound question, whether or not Investigator Belknap has been consulted, on the one hand is a question, and then the characterization of as an expert is another. We are tendering him to be qualified as an expert, but I object to that compound question being presented to this witness.
All right, I'll sustain as to form, sir.
Sir, have you been consulted in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Was that
Told you got him.
people that sought your consult, were they representatives of the district attorney's office?
So
Don't lie.
I'm trying to answer your question fairly. I've been involved in this investigation an element of this investigation for over a decade. So I've had conversations both with the
10
district
years.
attorney's office as well as with others in my unit, other investigators in the department about aspects of this case.
Okay. I didn't ask exclusively. Have you been consulted by the state on this case?
I honestly don't understand the question.
Oh my God.
You know who the state is.
I do.
Okay. Have any people that work for the state consulted you about this case?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Who?
Were you tasked as part of this case with determining the nexus of the overacts alleged in this case?
I don't know that I would say I was tasked with it, but I certainly had some conversations, an investigative role in that.
Okay. Have you reviewed, I'll start out with a number of have you reviewed any of the overacts in this case for the purposes of determining whether there's a nexus or not?
Your Honor, I object on the basis of relevance.
This is exactly what this case is about.
I'll allow it.
I have reviewed overt acts from this case. Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to say, have you reviewed all of the alleged overt acts in this case or some of them?
I mean, without you clarifying what you mean by reviewed, I'm at least aware. Have had some interaction with each of the overt acts. I didn't review complete case files or complete reports on all of them there.
Okay. Now, these allegations that are listed in the overt acts, as an officer initially, you were not assigned all those cases, correct? It involves some cases that you were not assigned as an officer.
That's correct.
Okay. When you were asked to review the overt acts in this indictment as a gang investigator, what materials did you look at?
Your Honor,
to review these
I
acts?
object to the question and its form. It asserts a matter that has not been
It goes,
testified about. When you reviewed the overt acts in this indictment, the witness has testified that he has seen some, but the question presented is meant.
This is crazy,
I
man. I'm
didn't
talking
say-
about.
say all.
I'll sustain this to form.
when you, okay, all right,
Rephrase.
okay.
I believe
When you reviewed some of the overt acts, the ones that
if
you
they do
actually
find
reviewed,
Thug guilty,
Okay.
man,
you with me?
he ain't gonna face
Somewhat.
charges
I
now.
wasn't asked to review the
He
indictment. The
ain't
district
may
attorney's
be able to
office
come-
I didn't
he
created the
ain't gonna be able
indictment
to come back.
Okay.
and-
outside of my influence.
Okay, and you testified that you reviewed some of the overt
And Your Honor,
acts.
I
Because
object
the whole
to the
case,
use of the word review. I'm not
basically,
certain whether it
when
meant
you
have you
look at
seen
a
them
lot
or
of
did you?
things,
He
I
used
just
the word
asked for
review.
you got to have
clarification.
Yeah,
circumstantial
why don't you clarify
evidence,
that? I'll sustain.
What did
solid
you mean by
evidence.
review?
And with a big trial like this, here, man,
You have to take me back. This has all been fairly vague, just to be honest with you, and I don't know if we've
Young
ever really
Thug
established
got
what
a
we're talking
great
about.
Okay.
criminal defense team.
Members of
And right
the
now,
Constitution of the state.
you would see that a
Came
lot
to
of
you as an
these
expert.
charges,
Guys, it's here, just like they said it would. Since I qualified, it looks like I'm going to get one of these every month. I
Basically,
called in just 3 days ago.
is just
It's a no if it's a
throwing
yes, it's a
a
yes.
bunch
I
of
object
stuff
to the
against the wall
question.
and see what stick. You know what I'm saying?
One, on the basis of
So,
relevance for the purpose of this
you know,
hearing.
It's
Uh,
goes directly to his
Listen.
methodology, so we can put that to rest.
I don't agree, but two, as to the form of the question, which
I'm sustaining this to the form, Mr. Sharp. Why don't you rephrase?
when you got professionals don't want to answer
Did
questions,
you look at some of the
and
documentation
got another
of
person life in their
overt
hands,
acts listed in this case?
this is what you call ludicrous.
Did I look at it when?
Ever?
I've certainly seen documentation From this case, yes.
Okay, and did that involve documentation in the overt acts that you were not initially assigned to as a gang investigator?
Yes.
It's okay.
I'm not, I, again, don't really know what we're talking about.
Okay, well, so
Oh my God, man.
when you reviewed alleged overt acts, the documentation into alleged overt acts that you were not initially assigned to as a gang investigator, what type of documents would you look at? What type of documents would you rely on to determine if there's a nexus or not? That's what I'm asking.
Your Honor, that's a compound question, and I also,
Sustain as the form.
I'm literally asking what kind of documents would you rely on
Simple.
as an expert?
and I'm,
Nothing compound about it.
Simple.
Your Honor, I'm objecting to the form of the question because it presupposes
How?
something that the witness has not
He's already said he reviewed-
testified to.
He's already said he reviewed things. We keep going back and forth.
And Your Honor, the witness also said, I'm not sure.
The relevant part, Mr. Shard, is it, methodology?
What is your methodology for determining if there's a nexus or not?
That would depend on each individual piece of evidence and each case in question.
Okay, for this case in question, what is your methodology for determining if there's a nexus or not? And also, what sources of information do you rely on to execute that methodology?
Your Honor, compound, I
I
object.
sustain as the form.
Okay,
He's already,
what sources of information do you rely on?
Objection, vagueness.
that's been asked and answered, Mr. Shard.
It hasn't been answered, Your
Yes, it
Honor,
has.
respectfully.
Yes, it has. He's testified earlier about jail calls. He's testified earlier about, shall I run the list for you, Mr. Shard?
Please.
I'm not going to because I've heard that, okay? And I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay.
But I can tell you at this point in time that he has
This is ludicrous, man.
he is faced that Mr. Shard, you listen to me. You're going to talk to Mr. You're going to
I'm
talk to
listening
Mr.
to you,
Steele.
sir.
I mean, if you want, I'll let you talk to him. But part of what he's testifying to is his training, his experience, his listening to jail calls, signs, language, interviewing thousands of gang members, cell phone, social media, intelligence meetings, and the like,
I understand.
and the 6-point criteria that
I understand
he's
that.
testified to. So can we tie it to something along the lines of that?
Your Honor, I understand what he's testified to. I agree that he's talked about all those things. What I am specifically asking is what his methodology was in this case and what we would be relying on in this case. The state has said that they're tendering him as an expert in 4 different things. And what I'm simply I'm simply asking him, Your Honor, in plain English, is what documents he's relied on in this case to make certain determinations. What documents? I'm not asking about jail phone calls. I'm not asking about a 6-point test. I'm asking.
That's what's going to cause the mistrial.
He's testified that he was.
That's what's going to cause the
initially involved
mistrial.
as an officer
Gonna have a hung
in
jury.
some of these
Then,
cases. So therefore,
depending on this
working
guy
as
here testimony, he's supposed to be an expert witness
He's not
for
an
the state.
expert yet, but he's been consulted as an expert, and he's
Right.
acknowledged that. And all I'm asking is,
You can't
what,
answer a
as
simple
an
question.
expert that's been consulted, what documents has he reviewed in preparation of his testimony in this case?
Have you reviewed any documents, sir?
I have.
Okay. Can you tell counsel which ones you reviewed?
And as I tried to tell you earlier, I think, that's going to depend on each specific underlying count as to what would be reviewed in that particular instance. There are different materials available in different cases.
Okay. In general, what are some of the documents that you would rely upon in making these determinations?
Yeah, and that's where the objection comes in. It's vague. What are
I'll sustain the objections to being vague.
This is ludicrous.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You can.
He just dropped the bomb.
No.
If you're gonna show it to him, you gotta mark it just for identification, okay?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever number we're on, D1.
We'll do D1 for purposes of the motion. And D1 is a copy of the indictment?
Copy the indictment.
Okay.
Sir, I'm handing you a copy of the indictment in this case. I would like to draw your attention to overt act.
Got him. Told you he got
Can you
him.
tell me what overt act 3 alleges?
It alleges that defendant Shannon Stillwell, an associate of YSL, did commit the felony offense of possession of marijuana with intent to distribute in violation of Georgia law pursuant to OCGA 161330J1, which is an act of racketeering activity under OCGA 161435A 36, and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy.
Okay. Let's take that for example. Okay. Possession of marijuana with intent. Okay. What types of documentation or information would you like to know in a case like that to determine if there is a nexus to a criminal streak?
Got him.
Sure. So one of the important pieces of documentation, particularly as it pertains to gangs and drug distribution, one of the primary sources is going to be previous police reports, especially as it pertains to your client and his gang. We have a multitude of police reports which show he and other gang associates selling narcotics in particular areas, selling narcotics generally, and selling narcotics in conjunction with other members of the gang. So that would be one piece, because one of the things we have to know to charge the gang act would be what the gang does. If we're charging participation in the gang's activities, we need to know what the gang's activities are. So police reports are one source of that. Field interviews can also be an important source for understanding associations between different defendants or suspects, and also showing appearances or association with certain areas or certain territory or turf. We also would talk to and interview gang members. We'd interview people from the community. We would talk to defendants in custody in proffer sessions, for example. We would also look for potentially the presence of gang identifiers during an arrest. Are they wearing gang clothing or gang bandanas or other sort of gang indicia at the time of the arrest or during the investigation? We, again, as mentioned before, may look at social media. We may look at the effect of the act on the reputation of the person within the context of the gang and the effect on the reputation of the gang itself. If I didn't mention it already, we may look at who they were with at the time of the crime when it occurred. We could listen to jail calls. We often seize and extract cell phone data, a variety of sources where the information may come from during that determination process.
Okay. Now, and I'm correct in my belief that what you just testified to is as things that you could do. You're not saying that you necessarily did that in relation to to over Act 3, you're talking in general terms, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He's answering the question, and if there's a specific,
I'm seeking clarification. Your Honor.
I changed the form.
Okay. Are you saying that you did all those things in regards to over Act 3?
My understanding of your question was that it was general.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
All right, so are you, because we do not have a report from you, correct?
I've not made an expert report in this case.
Okay, are you planning on testifying that all of these over acts were done in furtherance of the gang?
Your Honor, I'd object.
Well, that depends on what is qualified as to, so I'm.
Well, Your Honor, I guess part of the
I'm
problem.
sustaining the objections.
Okay, I understand. Can I just state something, Your Honor?
I'd like you to ask another question, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
When can we expect a written report from you?
I've not been asked to produce a written report in this case.
Well, why you on the stand? You an expert.
You
I don't get it.
you indicated that would you agree that a gang member committing a crime, a known gang member committing a crime, is not necessarily criminal gang activity?
Absolutely.
Okay. In establishing that nexus, you just said that one of the things you would rely on is the type of crime it is,
That could be a factor in the decision. Absolutely.
because are you saying that certain gangs are known for certain types of crimes?
Yes.
Okay. YSL in particular, what crimes are they known for?
I would say from our experience, a staple crime for YSL is narcotics sales.
Okay. Are there any other crimes that, if committed, would be an indicator that it's YSL related?
Objection as to the form.
I
It's-
stand.
Can I get clarification? What was wrong with the form?
Just rephrase it, sir.
Are there
No.
any other types of crimes that are typically associated with YSL?
Yes.
What are those?
What are those?
We've investigated quite a few armed robberies, auto thefts, shootings, the illegal possession and use of firearms. As we've discussed, a variety of drug trafficking related charges, murder. I believe we've investigated some fraud activity and even things like physical assaults, maybe not aggravated assaults, but just assaults, beatings, fights, things of that nature.
Okay.
Burglaries, carjackings.
You just going down the list now. But he ain't got none of them black and white.
Are these associations between YSL and these specific types of crimes, do you know if there's any documentation about that to say, like, this is what YSL is known for within the APD?
I'm not sure I understand the
Is there anything
Good
written
question.
in any memoranda or anything else, to your knowledge? Internal?
again, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me. Is there anything written within the APD that says that YSL commits these crimes?
Yes.
I mean, I'd say there's a lot of police reports that say that.
Okay. Police reports. All right. And okay. One last area I wanted to speak to you about. Attorney Steele asked you about the identification of Mr. Williams as a member or associate with YSL, and you indicated one of the sources was KC.
I don't recall my specific testimony in that.
Okay. Do you know who KC is?
I believe I know who you're referring to, yes.
Okay. Did you make an independent, well, let me ask about my client. Have you made an independent determination about Mr. Stillwell's gang affiliation or association?
Do I have an opinion about it?
Yes.
I do.
Okay. And what is that opinion?
So he's been a longtime associate of 30 Deep. He's also associated with 5'9" Brims. And he's also associated with YSL.
Okay. You said associated with the YSL?
Yes.
Is that, and I just want to be clear, are you distinguishing that from being a member or?
I do believe that he is a member. And he's certainly associated with the gang.
And what information are you relying on as it relates to Mr. Stillwell?
So Mr. Stillwell has been arrested quite a few times over the 14 years that I've known him for crimes consistent with the gang's activities, beginning back as far as, I believe, 2010, committing smash and grab burglaries with 30 Deep. He's also been arrested numerous times, involved in the possession and distribution of narcotics within Mechanicsville and with other members of the gang.
When you say, let me just seek clarification. When you say the gang, are you talking about 30 Deep or YSL at this point?
Both. I know he's been arrested with Trontavious Stevens, who's also been on this indictment, with Demekion Garlington, with Mr. Nichols, in the context of narcotic selling activity. And based on his own admission, so I interviewed him back in, I believe, 2014 or 15 when he came home from prison. And he had picked up a bunch of 5'9" Brim gang tattoos, and I asked him about those, and he said he had joined while he was in prison. So his own statements as far as that.
He had joined what group?
5'9" Brim.
5'9" Brim, okay. And that is, in your opinion, a distinct group from YSL?
They are.
Okay. What about 30 Deep?
As regard to what?
Is that also a distinct group from YSL?
It is its own group, although it is associated with YSL.
Wow.
May I continue?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
so he's also made his own admissions on social media. When in cell phone extractions, there's evidence of his association with, and we believe membership within YSL and 30 Deep. We've also reviewed jail calls where he's actually seen as somebody who is potentially somebody with influence or authority within the gang, some sort of seniority, where I've listened to jail calls where other members have been arrested and asked someone to reach out to him to help coordinate legal counsel or bond or something else related to his incarceration.
Do you know who made those jail calls?
I mean, one specifically was Demekion Garlington, and others, I don't know specifically, but I know Demekion Garlington for one.
You're saying Demekion Garlington was the incarcerated individual reaching out to Mr. Stillwell?
Asking someone to reach out to Mr. Stillwell on his behalf, yes. And in that same conversation, asking them to reach out to Mr. Williams and others that were involved with YSO.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
We're going to take a lunch break at this point in time, or a lunch and comfort extended break, as the court has some other unrelated business. We're going to come back for 3:30 and see what the day leads us at that point.
So they'll be back at 3:30, man. And y'all want to check in, man. Y'all go ahead and tap into Law and Crime, man. You know, I just giving y'all a little update on the trial. You heard me. It's your boy, your host, Arthur Chillfetter. You did. Thanks for tapping in, family. And God bless. Be safe out there. You heard me. For real. Check my links out.